Your government has a secret. Not the kind of secret that gets leaked on Twitter and forgotten by Thursday. The kind of secret that when it finally came out, made every single person who heard it say the exact same 3 words. They did what? Here is what actually happened. For over 20 years, the United States government ran a program so disturbing, so illegal, so completely insane, that when Congress finally investigated it in 1977, the CIA director sat in front of the committee and said, "We destroyed the files." This is the story of MKUltra, the most illegal science experiment ever conducted by a government on its own people. And the most terrifying part? They did it because they thought they had to. Before we get to what they did, you need to understand what they were afraid of. To understand MKUltra, you need to go back to 1950. The Cold War is in full swing. The United States and Soviet Union are locked in the most paranoid standoff in human history. And American intelligence had just received a report that made everyone in Washington go completely pale. The Soviets might have developed a way to control the human mind, not metaphorically, not through propaganda. Literally. Chemical mind control. During the Korean War, American prisoners of war were coming home, saying things that made no sense. Some were confessing to crimes they didn't commit. Some were praising the communist system they had spent years fighting against. Some couldn't remember large parts of their captivity. The CIA called it brainwashing, and they were terrified, because if the Soviets had figured out how to rewrite a human being's thoughts, the entire Cold War was already over. So the CIA did what any reasonable government agency would do when faced with an existential threat. They decided to figure it out first. What happened next was not reasonable. In April 1953, CIA Director Allen Dulles authorized a program so secret it didn't officially exist. What they were planning to do will make you deeply uncomfortable. The program was called MKUltra. MK stood for mind control, the German word for control, which tells you a lot about where they got the idea. The goal was simple: find a way to chemically control a human mind. Make someone confess, make someone forget, make someone do whatever you needed them to do without them ever knowing it was happening. The lead scientist was a man named Sidney Gottlieb. He had a PhD in chemistry from Caltech. He was described by colleagues as brilliant, dedicated, and deeply, deeply strange. Gottlieb believed that LSD, a powerful hallucinogenic drug discovered only a few years earlier, might be the key. If you could control the dose, control the environment, control the experience, maybe you could control the person. There was only one problem with this theory: it was completely insane. But in 1953, with the Cold War at its peak and the fear of Soviet mind control keeping CIA directors awake at night, insane seemed like a reasonable place to start, so they started. And they didn't start small. What I'm about to tell you is not fiction. Every single thing in the next 2 minutes is documented, verified, and was paid for by your tax dollars. MKUltra ran 150 separate research programs across 80 institutions, universities, hospitals, prisons, mental health facilities. They funded research at Harvard, Stanford, and Columbia University, without those institutions knowing what the money was really for. And they tested their experiments on human beings. Some of those human beings volunteered. Most of them had absolutely no idea what was being done to them. This is where it gets dark. The CIA set up safe houses in San Francisco and New York City. They hired prostitutes to lure men off the street. The men were given drinks laced with LSD without their knowledge or consent. CIA agents watched through one-way mirrors and took notes. They called the operation, and I want you to really hear this. They called it Operation Midnight Climax. In hospitals and mental health facilities, patients were given LSD for weeks, some for months. One patient received it every single day for 174 consecutive days. These were not enemy spies. These were American citizens, patients who had come to hospitals for help. Prison inmates were offered reduced sentences in exchange for participating in drug experiments. They were not told what drugs they would receive. In one program, soldiers were dosed with LSD and told they were testing new equipment. They were not testing new equipment. The scientists kept notes. They kept files. They documented everything. Because at the end of this, they believed they would find the answer to how you control a human mind. They never found it. But the most disturbing part of MKUltra isn't what they did to strangers. It's what happened to one of their own. Frank Olson was a US Army biochemist. He worked with the CIA on biological weapons research. He was a colleague, an insider. One of them, in November 1953, Olson attended a CIA retreat in rural Maryland. During the retreat, Sidney Gottlieb secretly added LSD to the after-dinner drinks, without telling anyone, including Olson. Olson had no idea what was happening to him. Over the following days, he became increasingly disturbed, paranoid, deeply distressed. His colleagues described him as a changed man. 9 days after being secretly dosed, Frank Olson fell from the window of a 10th-floor New York hotel room. He was 43 years old. The CIA told his family it was suicide. When his body was exhumed in 1994, forensic experts found evidence of a blunt force injury to his head that occurred before the fall. His son Eric has spent his entire life trying to find out what really happened to his father. He still doesn't know. Frank Olson's case is not a conspiracy theory. It is documented. The United States government admitted that he was secretly dosed with LSD without consent. They paid his family $750,000 in compensation. They never answered the question of exactly how he died. In 1973, the man who ran MKUltra did something that should make every single person watching this genuinely furious. Richard Helms was the CIA director in 1973. He knew that a Senate investigation into CIA activities was coming, so he ordered the destruction of all MKUltra files, thousands of documents, 20 years of records, the evidence of everything that had been done to thousands of American citizens, all of it shredded. He later testified before Congress. When asked about the program, he said he could not recall the details. There was just one problem with destroying all the files. Someone forgot about the financial records. In 1977, a CIA employee found approximately 20,000 documents that had been misfiled in a record storage facility and missed during the shredding order. Those documents triggered the Senate investigation of 1977. For the first time, the American public learned what their government had been doing for over 2 decades. The hearings were broadcast on television. People watched a CIA director explain to their elected representatives that yes, the United States government had secretly drugged its own citizens with LSD. Yes, some of those people had died. Yes, the files had been destroyed. No, they were not sorry. The program was officially ended. No one went to prison. Here is what MKUltra actually proved, and it's not what the CIA was looking for. Sidney Gottlieb and the CIA spent 20 years and millions of dollars trying to prove that you could control a human mind with chemicals. They failed. Every single experiment confirmed what any decent psychologist could have told them from the beginning. You cannot reliably control a human mind. You can damage it, you can terrify it, you can traumatize it permanently, but you cannot control it. The victims of MKUltra were not enemy combatants. They were not criminals. They were bartenders and soldiers and hospital patients and students. American citizens who went to sleep one night not knowing that their government had decided they were acceptable collateral damage in a war they didn't know was being fought. MKUltra was officially declassified in 1977. Sidney Gottlieb retired in 1972 and moved to a farm in Virginia. He raised goats. He grew vegetables. He practiced folk dancing. He died in 1999 at the age of 80. He never expressed regret. He told a journalist shortly before his death that he believed he had served his country to the best of his ability. The last known survivor of MKUltra filed a lawsuit against the CIA in 2018. She was 84 years old. The case was dismissed. The next time your government tells you it has your best interests at heart, remember that for 20 years, the best interest they had in mind was figuring out how to get inside your head without asking. His name was Sidney Gottlieb. Now you know what he did.